Hey everybody, it's Eric Vanny here, the realtor in Ottawa. It's a beautiful fall day here in Ottawa and the kids are back in school. And around this time of year, I always start to think about all the little things I need to do to maintain my home, preserve it so that, as we head into these very extreme winter months, a lot of crazy weather, that we can preserve the integrity of the home and make sure that we're protecting our investment. So I've come up with my top 6 things that I think you need to do to ensure that your home is ready for the winter. And now, some of these things, if you're in a condo, the management companies will be taking care of this stuff for you, but having the knowledge about what needs to happen will equip you so that if they miss something, you can remind them. All right, check it out. So number 1 in our list is going to be surface drainage. Now, surface drainage away from the house. So you want a positive slope away from the house, so that water is not making its way down along the foundation wall all the way down to your footings, where it can cause all kinds of bad problems. And so you want to get the water away from the house. If you don't have a positive slope here, let's say this did have a negative slope on it going towards the house, you can just backfill it. Fill it with organic soil, any kind of soil where eventually grass can grow on. If you have a flower bed there, make sure that it's graded away from the house. If it's patio stones, you can grade away from the house. You can lift the patio stones, you can reinstate the base underneath the patio stones and jack it up. Just make sure that you have a positive slope away from the house. So for any patioed areas, you want to make sure that there's that slope away from the house. The water that's coming out of your eave-troughs, you want to get away from the house as well. So don't be shy. Get some nice long downspout extensions and make sure that you're sending that water a good 3-4 feet or more is better away from the house. So continuing on with the surface drainage portion of our little annual inspection here, we're going to take a look at our eave-troughs here. Now mine are pretty clean. I cleaned them earlier this summer because there was a whole bunch of stuff in them. But you want to make sure that this little area especially is going to be clear of debris, because what happens is that a lot of the leaves and debris will end up getting stuck in there, and if that gets clogged up, what's happening is that the water is coming into here, and especially in the winter, it's just going to go right over and fall. It's as if you didn't even have an eave trough. So you want to make sure that that's kept clear and free of debris. Another thing you can do too is you can take a look at your shingles and inspect them. You can also take a look at your plumbing vent stack, which is over there, that little thing that's sticking up. Make sure that that is solidly in place, that there's no holes where critters can get in, and that's pretty much it. Just take a look, make sure everything's okay, no evident damage, no evidence of any animals getting in there, and you should be good. Item number 2 is going to be plumbing and garden hoses. One of the things I've seen a lot of problems with over the years is garden hose bibs. And so the new garden hose bibs are what are called frost-free ones. And so they have a stem, they'll shut off here, and the shut off happens on the inside. And so what happens is that anything that freezes gets pushed out towards the outside here and comes out the spout. With the old style ones, the shut off happens over here in this area. And so what happens is as the wall freezes here when it gets really cold, frost can happen on the inside where there's pressurized water, and that's where you'll get something will rupture on the inside, a pipe will rupture, and it can cause a huge amount of damage. It can fill your basement if you're out of the house for a while and this happens. It's an absolute disaster. So this is a very, very important thing. You want to winterize your outside hose bib. So either get a frost-free tap installed by a licensed plumber, or if you can do it yourself, you can do it yourself. And if not, what you do, if you have an old school shut off, you'll shut off on the outside, and on the inside there will be another shut off, and there will be a bleeder valve. So you want to bleed the area between this shut off and the other shut off on the inside so that it's just air there, so that if frost gets in here, you're safe and nothing bad happens. For myself, I'm really big into gardening, and so I love collecting rainwater. I have a bunch of these and they're all connected with overflows to bins here. I use all this water. I only had to use my city water once this year, which I'm really proud of, for a huge garden that I have. And so one of the things I have to do is I have to disconnect these things here and reconnect a long discharge, so what we call a downspout extension. So what I'm going to do is empty out my rain barrels, and I'm going to winterize them, store them in my shed, and we'll be good to go. Number 3, we're going to talk about HVAC. So as you know, in Canada we have some very, very extreme weather. We use our ACs a lot in the summer, and then we shut them down for the winter, and we use our furnaces. And so one of the things that's recommended is to shut off the power to your air conditioner, just so that, God forbid, somebody was to turn on the AC there in the middle of January accidentally, you could blow the motor on this thing. So we want to make sure that we shut off the power. We're going to go do that inside. We go down to our electrical panel and we're going to shut off the breaker that says AC on it right over here. Now next, let's talk about the furnace. So first thing we want to do when we're touching our furnace is you come to your furnace switch here, should be somewhere in the room, and you shut it off. So that way we'll be able to hear ourselves talk. And also if you're changing your furnace filter, that's a really key step so that you don't have any missteps here when you're changing your filter, which could possibly get sucked into the blower. So we want to avoid that at all costs. I would recommend having your furnace serviced every fall. I have it serviced myself. I find that, you know, it gives me a lot of peace of mind knowing that somebody's looked at it. Often, even with a new furnace, this one's only 3 years old, but you will have little leaks and things that'll spring up in the condensate discharge, which is, you know, it's something that can cause problems down the line. So I recommend having it serviced, but at the very bare minimum, you should open it up. Each furnace is different, so shut it off first, open it up and vacuum in there, and you should definitely be changing your filter often. I recommend every 2 months. The pleated hypoallergenic filters, they get filled up with dust very easily, and so it's a really good thing to change them often. Another thing to think about with a furnace is if you have a humidifier like I do here, it's important to open up the humidifier, and you're going to want to clean out the filter. Each manufacturer will have different recommendations on how to do that. There's a switch here to go from summer to winter, and you're going to want to change that to the winter setting. The summer setting bypasses it completely for the summer. Item number 4 is going to be your landscaping. And so we're talking about trimming the grass, making sure that everything is clean, and also trimming hedges and trees, anything that's overhanging, where you have something overhanging any structures or coming up close to structures. You want to make sure that you trim that now. It's very difficult to trim things in the winter, so you want to make sure that you address anything like that in the fall. Another item as well is if you do have an AC that's on the ground, you can trim around your AC and make sure that there's no long weeds that are, you know, potentially going to get caught in there or cause damage. Item number 5 is going to be our safety equipment that goes with the house. So the first thing we're going to look at is our GFIs here and making sure that our outside receptacles and outlets are in good shape. So you want to just inspect them, make sure the covers are working properly. And then manufacturers recommend testing these things 10 times a year, which we never do. So what I like to do is on the day that I do all this stuff, I'd like to test them, maybe test them 6 times, just make sure that it's working well. And then once you've got it reset and everything's working well, then you should be protected. The last thing you want to do is have an emergency where you need to use an electric appliance in the middle of the winter, and you go outside and you find out your receptacle doesn't work. Something else I'm just going to throw in here with the safety equipment is to make sure you clean out the lint out of your dryer vent. So there's a little grill that goes on here, and you want to make sure that you're cleaning around, making sure that there's no lint that's trapped in there. A lot of fires start because of dryer lint, and so it's really important to keep your pipes and your lint traps free from all lint. Something else that's really important to check out is your fire alarms and your carbon monoxide alarms. The building code says you should have one on each level. I like to keep mine pretty close to the furnace here because most fires in homes will start in the furnace room. So we want to make sure that we're testing this, making sure that the carbon monoxide and the smoke function work. Oh, that's a nice sound, eh?
Fire. Warning, carbon monoxide. Monoxide de carbone.
So we want to make sure that's in good working order. So final item is item number 6 is going to be windows and doors. So we want to make sure that the windows and doors are working well, that they're properly lubricated, that everything's functioning properly, and that they're sealed well. So around the windows and doors, we want to inspect the caulking. We want to make sure that the caulking is in good order, sealing properly between the 2 different surfaces. We want to make sure to take a look at the windows, both inside and out, inspecting the locking mechanisms. I like to use either Jigaloo or some kind of lubricant on there. I make sure that the mechanisms are properly lubed and working well. I want to make sure that everything's tight and that the handles are working properly. The winter will put a lot of stress on the window, and so having a properly functioning and clean window in the fall, you'll be able to use it all winter long. You also want to make sure that they close properly, because if you don't close them properly, there'll be heat exchange from the inside and the outside. Aside from being bad for the environment, it's also going to cause a lot of condensation and frost, and then you'll get to the point where I've seen in a lot of houses I've been into where you actually can't even open the windows anymore in the winter. You can't even shut them. So it can be a real disaster. It could be a lot of problems. So I like to lube everything up, take everything off. Another thing you can do is you can take the screens off in the winter. So I like to wait until December 1st to do that so that there's no bugs outside whatsoever. Once you have the screens off, you can actually bring them into the bathtub and you can spray them off with your shower nozzle, and it'll clean off all the stuff that gets caught in the screen, and you'll have some nice fresh screens. You store them somewhere, and then in the spring, the minute the bugs start coming out, then you want to put the screens back up. So with windows and doors, you want to think about 2 things. Do they close well and do they open well? And to close well, we need to make sure that the weather stripping over here is in good shape. It has to be a snug fit to the door, and it does eventually wear out. So if you want to try to do it yourself, you can check out Home Depot, or if you want to get a handyman to replace that for you, it is possible to replace the weather stripping on all doors and windows. So there you go. Those are the 6 things that I think you need to do to get your house ready for the winter. And once again, it's Eric Vanny here, the realtor in Ottawa. If you have any questions whatsoever, I'd be glad to answer them for you. You can feel free to message me directly, or you can also just comment on the videos below, and I'll be sure to get back to you. So have a great fall and get that house ready for the winter.